The Scandalous Life of Harold Washington, 10 Shocking Facts. Harold Washington, the first African-American mayor of Chicago, was a figure whose political career was marked by controversy, charisma, and a relentless fight for justice. His tenure from 1983 until his untimely death in 1987 was filled with clashes with political adversaries, groundbreaking reforms, and personal scandals that kept the city in suspense. Here are 10 of the most scandalous, shocking, and intriguing facts about Harold Washington. Fact number 1. Early life and personal challenges. Harold Washington was born on April 15, 1922, in Chicago's South Side, a neighborhood marked by racial segregation and economic hardship. His father, Roy Lee Washington, was a lawyer and a former preacher who had a tumultuous relationship with his son. Growing up, Harold often found himself caught between his father's high expectations and the social limitations imposed by a racially divided society. Despite these challenges, Harold showed an early aptitude for leadership. He attended DuSable High School, where he was active in debate and student government, displaying a charisma that would later become his political hallmark. Washington went on to attend Roosevelt College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in 1949, followed by a law degree from Northwestern University in 1952. He was briefly married to Nancy Finch, a union that ended in divorce, reportedly because his political ambitions and career demands took precedence over his personal life. Washington never remarried, which some insiders speculated was due to his dedication to his political career, often stating that Chicago was his only bride. Number 2. A conviction for failure to file taxes. In 1972, Harold Washington's burgeoning political career was nearly derailed by a conviction for failing to file his federal income tax returns for 4 consecutive years, from 1967 to 1970. He was sentenced to 36 days in federal prison and fined $500. Washington's political adversaries capitalized on the scandal, with some accusing him of being untrustworthy and unfit for public office. However, Washington maintained that the charges were exaggerated and politically motivated. He later referred to his time in jail as a sabbatical, describing the experience as a humbling period that connected him to the struggles of ordinary citizens. Despite the scandal, he managed to turn the narrative in his favor, portraying himself as a victim of systemic bias, which resonated with many of Chicago's black and working-class residents who saw his conviction as emblematic of the unfair treatment they often faced. Number 3. The contentious mayoral campaign of 1983. Harold Washington's 1983 mayoral campaign was a watershed moment in Chicago's political history, characterized by intense racial tensions and bitter rivalries. Running against incumbent Mayor Jane Byrne and State's Attorney Richard M. Daley, Washington faced a barrage of attacks, including accusations that he would radicalize the city and undermine its economic stability. The campaign became infamous for its racially charged rhetoric. Byrne accused Washington of polarizing the city's racial lines, while Daley's campaign reportedly distributed pamphlets designed to stoke racial fears among white voters. Despite the onslaught, Washington's campaign was fueled by grassroots organizing and massive turnout among African American voters. His slogan, "Harold Washington for All Chicago," resonated with progressive whites and minorities, leading him to a narrow but decisive victory. On April 12, 1983, Washington became the first African American mayor of Chicago, fundamentally altering the city's political landscape. Number 4. The Council Wars era. Washington's tenure as mayor was dominated by the period known as the Council Wars, a bitter political struggle between Washington's reformist agenda and a bloc of 29 predominantly white aldermen led by Alderman Edward Verdaliak. The Verdaliak 29 opposed nearly all of Washington's initiatives, leading to legislative gridlock and fierce public debates. This opposition was widely seen as racially motivated, with Washington often accusing his adversaries of practicing plantation politics. The feud led to numerous court battles, media spectacles, and a deeply divided city council, with Washington famously stating, "Chicago has more warring tribes than the African continent." The impasse eventually began to break after a court ruling on redistricting in 1986 forced several of Washington's opponents out of office, giving him a narrow majority and allowing him to pass several key reforms. Number 5. Controversial appointments and allegations of nepotism. Despite his reformist reputation, Washington's administration was not without its controversies, including accusations of nepotism. One notable case involved the appointment of his brother, Roy Washington Jr., to a high-paying position within the city government. Critics accused Washington of using his office to benefit his family, undermining his promise of transparency and fairness. Washington defended the decision, arguing that his brother was highly qualified and had substantial experience. However, the controversy over perceived favoritism continued to dog his administration, providing ammunition for his critics who accused him of hypocrisy and cronyism. Number 6. Feuds with Chicago media. Harold Washington's relationship with the Chicago media, particularly the Chicago Tribune, was acrimonious and contentious. He often accused the Tribune of racial bias, calling it a plantation newspaper during a 1985 press conference. Washington believed the newspaper's coverage was systematically undermining his efforts to govern fairly, citing what he viewed as a disproportionate focus on his administration's failures while ignoring its successes. The Tribune, in turn, frequently published editorials critical of Washington's policies and leadership style, which his supporters argued was part of a broader strategy to discredit his administration. This tense relationship highlighted the racial and political divisions within Chicago and reflected the deep-seated biases that Washington sought to challenge. Number 7. Allegations of misconduct in the City Council. Throughout his tenure, Washington faced allegations of corruption and misconduct among his allies in the City Council. Several aldermen, some of whom were close to Washington, were accused of accepting bribes and engaging in corrupt practices. The situation came to a head in 1986 when the FBI launched Operation Silver Shovel, an investigation into corruption within the Chicago City Council. The probe led to the conviction of several aldermen. Although Washington was never personally implicated, the scandal cast a long shadow over his administration, raising questions about his ability to control the political machine he had vowed to dismantle and tarnishing his image as a reformer. Number 8. The tragic and sudden death. On November 25, 1987, Harold Washington died suddenly of a heart attack at his City Hall office. His death came just months after winning a second term, and the news shocked the city. While the official cause of death was a heart attack, his passing sparked numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculated that his death was the result of foul play, given the divisive nature of his political career and the numerous enemies he had made. Others pointed to his known health issues, including hypertension and a previous heart attack in 1985. Washington's death led to a fierce power struggle within the Democratic Party, exposing the deep divisions that continued to exist in Chicago's political landscape. Number 9. The legacy of racial and political divide. Washington's tenure as mayor left a profound impact on Chicago, particularly in terms of race relations and political alignments. His administration pushed for numerous progressive reforms, including increasing minority representation in city government and expanding city services to underserved neighborhoods. However, his time in office was also marked by deep racial and political divides, with some residents viewing him as a champion of civil rights, while others saw him as a polarizing figure. Washington's efforts to dismantle Chicago's entrenched political machine set the stage for future mayors, who would continue to grapple with the complex legacy he left behind. Number 10. The memorials and controversies after his death. Following his death, Harold Washington was memorialized in several ways, most notably with the renaming of the Harold Washington Library Center in downtown Chicago. While many praised these efforts as fitting tributes to a groundbreaking leader, others argued that Washington's legacy was being overly romanticized. Opponents contended that his confrontational style and controversial political strategies overshadowed his accomplishments. Despite the mixed opinions, Washington remains a deeply influential figure in Chicago's history, with his impact still felt in the city's politics and racial dynamics. His supporters often quote him, "Let's work together in harmony and unity to make this a great city," underscoring his commitment to an inclusive vision for Chicago.